Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show. We're broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
We are proud to announce that YouTube has recognized Queer News Tonight, certified by analytics company vidIQ as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our diverse stories have reached over 10 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida. We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in the queer community. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, May 15th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we'll tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show. Hotspots Magazine, Happening Our Television Network, is a non-profit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 10,000 queer television stories.
We will produce the 25th anniversary of our Stonewall Pride Parade and Festival on June 14th. We will present Pride Fest August 9th, and we will declare that love is in the air with Pride Fort Lauderdale on February 14th. Valentine's Day, our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voice as our anchors. Together, we host this show to support the LGBTQ community. Let's meet today's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Bad Papi. Bad Papi is a Latinx gender-fluid drag artist who redefines what it means to be trans and non-binary in the Latin community. Bad Papi is also the executive director of Reflect Collective, a nonprofit that serves QTPOC survivors of sexual and domestic violence. Bad Papi Queer Fest is coming on May 29. What's happening?
So immerse yourself in nature in this year's Queer Fest, a healing event for QTPOC survivors of violence. Enjoy groundbreaking performances from drag artists, musicians, dancers, and more. Collect free giveaway from our sponsors. Shop at our vendor tables, relax at our sensory space, and peruse through our queer survivor art exhibit. Plus, get confidential HIV testing on site for free. This event is happening May 29th at Dear Eleanor in Wynwood and runs from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. You don't want to miss it. Tickets are available on shotgun.live.
Ooh, Wynwood. You know, Wynwood has started to put together a lot of queer events recently.
Yeah, actually, with the new opening of Willie's Neighborhood Bar, there's been quite a few queer stuff going on over there.
Yeah, because I have always said that, like, for the last 20 years, there's nothing queer in Miami. There's because there's really no dedicated gay bars in Miami.
Oh, yeah, and now there is.
So it's nice to find out that actually the overdevelopment of Miami hasn't passed the queer community by.
Well, Wynwood, there's no queerer place in Miami when you really think of the art, the margaritas, the coffee. What else? Of course, that's where the queer they're going to congregate.
True.
This seems like an amazing event too, I might add. Just a place for people to gather, and the fact that there'll be HIV testing, it makes it it's such an important thing that we need to see more of. So sounds like a great event.
Thank you.
It's already a major tourist destination to begin with, so the exposure is going to be awesome for not just the LGBTQ community, but the broader community at large that's visiting.
Absolutely. And there's going to be some of your local performers as well, like Sin Silva, there's going to be Vanity Lux, there's going to be Naomi Flair, Cosmic Divinity, and yours truly, Bad Papi. So please come if you can. Tickets are on shotgun.live. I hope to see you there.
Fantastic. And Queer News tonight look forward to seeing you at Queer Fest on May 29th. There's no other queer nonprofit media platforms like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Glen Weinzimer. He has been a South Florida advocate for over 30 years, raising awareness and raising more than $16 million for HIV/AIDS community for the last 20 plus years. He is also a travel director and corporate events planner. Glen, there's a Cars and Coffee event at Java Joe's on May 18th. Tell us what's going on.
First, you should definitely go to Java Joe's, because since they got taken over by Hunters and now they run it, the food and quality is right up there. But the Flamingo Auto Group South is hosting their next Cars and Coffee at Java Joe's, located next to Hunters, Wilton Manors, on Sunday, May 18th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Flamingo Auto Group South mission is to gather people for social interaction around our common interest in motor vehicles. All member vehicles of any age or condition are welcome. All you need is to enjoy vehicles, a positive attitude, and social fellowship with LGBTQ people. You can find out more at flamingoautogroupssouth.com. I love old cars. My favorite is the one that Kennedy was killed in with the suicide door.
1961 Lincoln Continental.
Yeah, that when I was a kid, I remember seeing that near where we lived, and I just loved that car, and I love the old Thunderbird. And I know that for this group, they have this amazing pink Cadillac. I think it's like a 55 or something. And then they have an aqua blue one, which is so mid-century modern. And I'm like, I just absolutely love it. So there's a couple of shows in town, this one, and there's usually one downtown Hollywood. So yeah, when you get a chance to see something like this, come on out. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
I'm a car nerd myself. That's why I can name all the cars you're thinking about, actually. But I used to have a friend, his name is Adam. He actually used to be a member of the group. He led the group for a while. And he had this custom, you remember the Gucci Cadillac from the 1980s?
Yeah, the Landau roof.
Yeah, with the Seville. He has one of those. I mean, the thing is weird as hell. I mean, Gucci fabric everywhere. But it's funny. I mean, it's fun. And also, yes, I enjoy Java Joe's a lot. I've been going there since most of the employee wasn't even born yet. Anyway, so I definitely support people who want to participate in the event, and any car are allowed. I mean, I've taken my cars there.
All right, and just to say, I'm glad that people talk nice things about the Java crew. I'll just say, Kathy and Carrie, my whole family, baby included, we always love seeing you guys every day that we're there for coffee and whatnot. And we've seen the car, because it's the same car group that's been there for years, I believe.
The event, yeah.
Yeah. And it's always been a nice time whenever I've seen them, They always have a nice group of cars. Everyone seems really nice and sweet. And it's always nice to go get coffee and have a good time.
They used to call it something else, but mostly because, but Cars and Coffee is now such a generic term now for any kind of neighborhood car show. So,
what did they call it before? Do you remember?
I have no idea. I think they just call it auto show or something, or meets. Yeah.
Right.
So
I always wondered where all those really cool car owners would just come and meet, because I would see these really cool cars on the road, and I'm where do they go? And I'm well, I guess they go to your event to show off their car. I gotta go.
A lot of these events happen if you're not an enthusiast of cars or even a specific car brand, you'll be missing it. I've been to BMW meets, Audi meets, Mercedes meets.
Wow.
And Honda, Tesla used to meet.
Now we meet at their place for different reasons.
Well, Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Cars and Coffee at Java Joe's on May 18th. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options magazine, media director for the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Alex, there's a special art party and show on May 17th. What's happening?
Sure, Bobby. Welcome to May the Fierce be with you art party and show. Join the Fierce Art Gallery studio for a night of creativity and fun. Get ready to experience amazing artwork from talented artists Jay Hadoff, Dooney Potter, and Sherman Yee. Special guest appearance by drag superstar Amy Drymouth, who will be showcasing their Suitcase of Love. The event runs from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on May 17th at the Fierce Art Gallery studio in Wilton Manors. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram and register for the event to enjoy a free open bar. Well, first and foremost, you always have me a free open bar. I just want to be very clear about that. It sounds like a fun time, too.
Alex, you barely drink.
Yeah, well, that makes me a cheap open bar guest.
I know. I mean,
You had me at free. You didn't even have to
Yeah.
do one.
You got me at art.
actually,
You got me at fierce, actually.
yeah. Actually, the art gallery I know pretty well. I know the owner, Sherman, and he is a very fantastic artist, and he has some of the best art on the drive at the moment. Although technically not on the drive because he's on Dixie. But that corner where Wells Fargo is developing to be like a little bit of an art district, just specifically
There's
for
like
Wilton.
four, one right after the other.
Yeah. So I think it's fantastic, and culture, we need it.
Absolutely.
Well, Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at May the Fierce Be With You art party and show on May 17th. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up business. Bank tells customer complaining about pride embracement. Well, go bank online then. In a story published in The Telegraph, a customer wrote to complain about his experiences while visiting the popular British bank Netwest. Despite Pride Month being over, the bank was still displaying pride flags. The customer, known as Mr. J, said that the flags caused him distress because of his disabilities and religious beliefs. When he complained, the bank said they would not take down the flags and suggested he try online banking or banking over the phone if he was upset by the decorations. Mr. J was very upset by that response, so he filed a complaint with the Financial Ombudsman Service in the UK, an organization that investigates consumer issues with financial institutions. Ombudsman Danielle Patton wrote, quote, NetWest is a bank that has chosen to display pride materials along with other paraphernalia at certain times of the year. As a service, we wouldn't be able to tell them not to do that, as they are entitled to celebrate and raise awareness of the communities they serve. I'm not able to decide that NetWest have acted unfairly here. They have provided alternative methods of banking and are entitled to decide what materials they display in their branches at certain times of the year, end quote. NetWest has over 500 branches and has continually ranked well on the Stonewall's UK Workplace Equality Index, which is the equivalent for our American HRC Corporate Equality Index. Well, first of all, good for NetWest. I loved it. I have lived in London before, and I have used their service before. Turns out, when I was there, I remember them very well. They always embrace pride. I mean, there's no rainbow capitalism, yada yada yada. But also, I just want to ask this question, Mr. J, what disability will make you uncomfortable looking at the rainbow flag?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Color blindness?
Like, as a disabled person myself, I'm like, why are you weaponizing your disability to be homophobic? Like, that's just kind of ridiculous.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's and religious beliefs. I'm sorry, not everywhere you step into has to cater to your religious beliefs. Sorry.
I know some people want to talk about, is this the story of rainbow capitalism? Is this an example of a good corporation? Like, no, this is a good example of a good bank teller. There's a saying that I think has become very toxic in America, which is the customer is always right. And the real quote is, the customer's always right in matters of taste, which is supposed to mean if someone thinks they look pretty in that wig or in that dress, you don't disagree. Not this idea that the customer can always brutalize the world around them in a store. Yeah. And it's nice to know that that is not part of the culture in England or really anywhere outside of the United States. So good for this teller for standing up and saying, listen, if you don't like the rainbow flag, you can go bank online or give us a phone call. Someone will eventually pick up.
And the ombudsman, good for them for protecting the LGBTQ community or any marginalized community by getting out there. And in a time like this, it's actually good for us as U.S. citizens to see that there's still support in other parts of the world for the LGBTQ community, where we fear it's sort of waning a little bit here right now in the U.S. So anytime we can tell a story like this, that highlights a positive outcome to discrimination, it always feels good.
I mean, ombudsman serve a major function, but, a lot of people are not aware of the term. Essentially, it's like sort of like an in-house mediator / arbitrator to make sure that they're, complying with whatever the rules that they're subscribed to.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried about this story, because when I saw the UK, I was like, oh my gosh, the UK really? After y'all had passed the anti-trans law that you did? You're actually supporting the LGBT community? Oh my gosh, thank you.
Well, I mean, not so much pass an anti-trans law as the fact that UK Supreme Court basically said that trans women are not considered women under the law, which is absurd.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the Parliament is going to write something else and pass it, and Supreme Court has shut up. So anyway, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Bad Papi, and let's queer up politics. What does it hint for November 2026 elections? Trans was a key issue. Incumbent Omaha Republican Jean Stothert has lost re-election to Democrat John Ewing Jr. She began her term as mayor as a centrist, even creating an LGBTQ plus advisory board. As the most recent mayoral election continued, Stothert began to adopt the current GOP social talking points, accusing Ewing of wanting boys in girls' bathrooms and sports. These talking points may have helped Donald Trump in the area, where he beat Kamala Harris by over 20% of the vote. Stothert had been popular with Omaha's Democrats in the past and won her 2021 re-election by 27 points. The recent adoption of anti-trans GOP talking points seemed to have cost her the election this time, as Ewing became the city's first black mayor and won with over 11,000 more votes. The transgender sports talking points are used frequently by Republicans, even though there are only about 10 transgender athletes in college sports, and Nebraska has its own transgender sports ban. Many suspect this election may indicate a turning point in public opinion as moderate Republican voters and independents become less enamored with buzzwords and more critical of action. I feel like every time I come to this news show, there's always a freaking story about how trans people shouldn't be in sports and how trans people shouldn't, use the bathroom that correlates to their gender. This is just such a tired narrative of us. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wish that we were kind of over it, because it's getting really...
But that's the point. The point is politicians keeps harping these points in order to essentially gaslight the general population into believing that is happening, and also to make sure to beat down our activism until it's like, oh, well, you know what, I give up. That's why we cannot give up. And every time someone, beat on our heads, we need to say, you can beat on our heads, and we're going to beat on your heads. The thing is, I don't know if the trans issue is a driving motivation for this mayoral election. The truth is, the majority of the country right now is extremely sour on Republicans. There's fear-mongering. The prices are not going down. Inflation is still going up.
We're in a pretty silent recession, I would say.
Exactly.
Honestly. Nobody's talking about it.
It's not that silent.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a very real Trump session. That's what we're seeing. I think there's two big things happening here. First, I think voters reminded us something. There's no such thing as a moderate Republican. That is a myth. They are all right-wingers. I don't trust it. I've never met a Republican that I could trust, and I will go to the day. I enjoy being mad at Democrats, but they're at least Democrats I can trust. I think I've met moderate or at least good Democrats. I've never had the same experience with Republicans. But on this specifically, I would say that I don't think this shows a change. I think this just reminds us all that Americans are less transphobic than like people try to push it, especially when JD Vance tried to claim that like there were all these like white gays that are not
normal gays.
Yeah. And then I go look at the exit polls. 88% of the LGBTQ community voted for Harris and not for JD Vance and his friend. And I look at that and I remind people that, you know, the LGBT community, that was a 2.5 million more votes in 2024 for Harris than what Biden got from our community, which is a reminder that there are a lot of queer people out there that do not appreciate the attacks on our community like this. And the idea on trans sports, you know, it could be 10 college kids or 10 million trans college kids in sports. Who cares? If you're worried about fairness, then ask questions like, should like a 400-pound guy wrestle like a 20-pound guy?
Exactly.
Not what your gender.
Exactly. Or their genital, your chromosomes, your what is it, like testosterone?
Yeah,
like
hormone levels.
I'm sorry, I don't think my chromosomes are going to make that much of a difference. I had a DNA test to prove that, though.
No, and like to your point, like I just feel like a lot of these like trans attackers or whatever, like are just like fear mongering too, like when these elections and stuff. And now that it's not working,
it is all fear mongering because most people don't know trans people. I mean, if you look at the general population, they either don't recognize it or they don't see it because it's not out there in their face. Every school doesn't have 100 trans children. I mean, they talk about there being only 10 trans athletes in whatever state we were just talking about. It isn't significant, but the idea of pinpointing that small marginalized community just raises the fear amongst the general population of something they don't know. And going back to what you said about like enough of the story, I get that because a lot of this seems like wash and repeat every time we're on the show, but it's almost like you have to, otherwise it's forgotten. It's
no, absolutely.
And I know you know that, but it's just, you know, it is like annoying to keep rehashing the same thing. But the truth is, if we don't, then no one's going to talk about it. It's no longer an issue.
Because the thing is that like I literally deal with that every day of my life.
Right.
Every day of my life, I'm always like, okay, what bathroom do I use? Where do I go? Like when there's like a gender thing, do I use the men's changing room? Do I use the women's changing room? Like I'm always like, where do you put me? You know?
And to be honest, like there's part of this fight is twofold. Of one, they talk about trans athletes to not talk about trans murders. It's a distraction to get us to not talk about the actual experiences that a trans person deals with. You know, I remember when I was at Creating Change a few years ago, one of the speakers, she talked about how, you know, she had to deal with kidney infections because she wasn't sure what bathroom to use. And, you know, part of this is also how we as an LGBTQ community react to these stories. Something that I will always get upset with is there was a pro-trans ballot initiative or anti... It was a very weird Massachusetts ballot initiative. And the Alliance Defending Freedom, they were trying out a lot of crazy transphobic stuff. And mass equality and the polite gays and the polite white people that run a lot of the LGBT groups, they didn't want to respond to any of that. We're going to be all high-minded. I'm like, if you allow these far-right fringe groups to say this now, they're going to take it all across the country.
Exactly. And that's what's happening.
What we've seen.
That's literally what's happening.
And thank you, Massachusetts.
And most of the people that are in the general population actually support trans rights. If you actually take like a population like count of like who like is actually like in support of like HRT, for example, they're completely fine with it. Like
HRT is done to cisgender, transgender,
exactly.
every kind of gender person.
Exactly.
I mean, if a man is taking testosterone shots because he is quote unquote low testosterone, you're literally doing gender conforming medical procedure.
Exactly.
But I want to go back to the point for Massachusetts because I'm very ashamed of you, Liberty Hotel in Boston, where the security guard literally chased two cisgender lesbians into the women's bathroom, demand that they show her the IDs and practically their genitalia in order to prove that they are a woman. Liberty Hotel, a 4-star hotel in Boston with a security guard, and the hotel defended the security guard in the beginning until, wait, where are they again? Boston. Yeah, which is
allegedly
ridiculous.
blue state, how blue states are supposed to be so safe, and I always say don't think a blue state safer than a red state.
Exactly. And the most of the time these persecutions happen to women of color because unfortunately femininity is based on white feminism, and they target women of color because they don't fit that mold that was created.
Well, the majority of murder victims of the transgender people are trans women of color, which is a sad statistics. And for now, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into the big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Glen Weinzimer, and let's queer up lesbians and queer women. History is made as Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue cover will be out Asian lesbian Lauren Chan. Sports Illustrated has made history with this year's swimsuit edition, which was released on May 13th. As is tradition, the special edition magazine was released with 4 different covers. One of them was Lauren Chan, an Asian and Middle Eastern plus-size model who has become the first out lesbian to make the cover of this special issue in its 61-year history. In an interview with People magazine, Chan said, quote, "My whole career has been based on representation and inclusion. Although my career has taken different forms, the same North Star has been followed, and that is to represent people like me who have felt marginalized and left out, to have them feel not just included but celebrated," end quote. Chan has been an icon in the fashion industry for several years, having created the plus-size clothing brand Henning, as well as having been an associate fashion editor for Glamour. She was also on the 2nd season of The Traders Canada. Sports Illustrated's editor-in-chief explained why Chan was selected, saying, quote, "Chan is rewriting fashion's narrative. As a model, activist, and entrepreneur, her why is about making people think of beauty in a way that's inclusive, genuine, and empowering. As a writer, she challenges the industry's narrow standards, offering a new vision where all bodies and stories are celebrated." She's pretty iconic. She's always stood up for LGBT rights. She has been working for Glamour magazine behind the scenes for ages. She's been in the magazine, but just not on the cover, I think 3 times. So she's, kudos to Glamour magazine for finding a place for someone who is creative, who's outspoken, who stands up for the other community while still being accepted in a magazine that's pretty cisgender, like it's a straight magazine, Sports Illustrated cover speaks to men all across the country, and they look forward to that edition. So, I think it's great. I think that she's a Canadian model. She's been a fashion editor. She's got everything going for her, and she's a good representation for our community. To her benefit, she fits in. Where so many other people that are trans may not fit in as easily. So there's that part of the narrative where you can say, is that fair to represent when not everyone is as fortunate as she is? But kudos to her for being out there and being inclusive and showing body positive images of someone who is of a plus size, and creating her own thing. So
she's absolutely gorgeous. Like, let me tell you, and not only that, but you could also tell that her spirit is also very beautiful as well. And I really am also happy about the representation of queer Middle Eastern women, because a lot of people unfortunately have a lot of discrimination against this population, thinking oh, they're not queer. There's no such thing as a queer Middle Eastern person, but there's lots of queer Middle Eastern people.
And talk about wearing a cover.
Yeah.
Because the Middle East, and so many of them wear the traditional garb where you don't see anything but their eyes. So being your true authentic self, regardless of who you are, as a Middle Eastern woman, is hard to show. Whether you're educated, whether you're creative, whether you're just a homebody, and an LGBTQ type person, it's hard to find, I would think, to find people like yourself, because you truly are wearing a cover that a lot of us wear every day to fit in, to succeed in business. I think we all change we're chameleons based on where we are, so, yeah.
I definitely, first of all, I think that she is really beautiful. And second of all, if that's plus size, then what is standard size? She doesn't look any kind of plus size to me.
I'm not an expert, but as I used to sell clothes at Banana Republic, and so
you can fold shirts,
right? Well, also there's women's clothing. There's petite, and then more plus sizes than that, because there's this idea that all girls should be petite, and that means a whole bunch of different sizing things. So she does. She has a very nice shape, but that doesn't mean that she's this 2 foot tall little doll. But also, looking at the swimsuit, that to me, it's a beautiful thing, because I'm not an expert in girls like not wearing a lot of clothes, but like that's a very different type
You're also not blind, so I think you've
swimsuit
seen
to
it.
me. Am I the only one that thinks that's a very beautiful, different type of way of wearing a
Yeah.
two-piece? It looks
Where I wear
Absolutely.
mine.
Oh.
Oh my.
Okay.
Just
And,
Yeah,
and the conversation just got derailed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you were saying, to be honest, because like it kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if you ever seen like that God, what's her name, the one that did America's Top Model,
Tanya, what?
I don't know.
Tyra Banks.
Tyra Banks.
Yeah, that she was
we were
like
all rooting for you.
yeah, no, she literally like there was like this like really skinny, like at least to me was skinny, and she was like, yeah, like she's plus size, but it'll work, and I'm like, if that's plus size, I'm obese. Like, there's no freaking way.
I remember she would talk about how, like, at one point Tyra Banks said, like, I'm at a very heavy weight at 160 pounds.
Yeah,
And I was this, like 160-pound twink thinking I was morbidly obese at, like, 24.
Well, to be fair, that was the America's Next Top Model thing happened during an era where we were aggressively body shaming each other.
Oh, I know.
Too fat, too thin, too muscly, too twinky, etc., etc., etc.
Britney 2007, that is all you need to know about that era.
All right, and that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Bad Papi, and let's queer up drag culture. How house motherhood drag culture has formed into key LGBTQ frontline protests and resistance. As RuPaul sang, "Call Me Mother," drag motherhood has been brought into the mainstream due to being featured in popular shows like RuPaul's Drag Race and Pose. Despite the polished glamour of drag families as seen on Drag Race, house mothers have their roots in a much more real place. Drag houses were founded as a way for marginalized people to help support each other with survival. In the ball culture of the 70s and 80s, many members of houses did not have resources, families, or even housing stability. The mothers and fathers of these houses would become a second family for their children, not only showing them how to perform, but also helping them stay off the streets, get jobs, and survive after many of them were outcast from their biological families. This dates back to the origins of ballroom culture during the Prohibition era, when being homosexual or dressing differently than expected for your gender were illegal. These houses existed as outcasts from society and the law, and naturally, they wanted to be able to express themselves and exist publicly. House mothers and fathers led their children in protests and activism, helping to build the foundations of acceptance that we still fight for today. And might I give a shout out to the Black and Latina trans women who basically made this movement, because they were the ones who pioneered ballroom culture and house culture. So thank you so much. I wouldn't be here today as Bad Papi without them. I would not be here as a drag king performing without this history, and that's why I honor them every time I do a show by doing protests every time I do a show. So I've protested Ron DeSantis, dumb law about like anti-drag establishments and stuff like that. I've protested Donald Trump. I protested Israel's unfortunate behavior with Palestine, and soon I will be protesting about ICE. So stay tuned for my next performance. But yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be here without them today. And drag has always and evermore will be a protest before, now, and forever.
I hope you're right, but I'm glad that we started with RuPaul, because I don't see his work as protest. I see it as profit.
No. That's mainstream. That's mainstream.
Well, more than like it was with RuPaul. Like, I don't see RuPaul doing a lot of activism on at least dealing with the attacks on drag. I'm like, that you're going to get an industry. Well, that's an attack on your industry. Yeah. Like, CVS defends their industry. Where's RuPaul defending his industry?
Oh yeah,
and that's been a big question.
That's mainstream.
You got to look at two different things. RuPaul has raised awareness so that we can have the conversation in mainstream homes, where people had never seen what drag was, were suddenly exposed to it and given an opportunity to be entertained. And it's not, you're right, it's not as much of a political statement, and maybe it needs to be a little bit more, but I think if it had been stronger in its outcry, it may not have gotten the viewership that it has done around the world.
I don't mean on RuPaul's Drag Race. I mean out in the world, I don't see RuPaul doing any activism. I don't mean it shows whatever his show should be.
Right.
But like, I see a lot of drag queens that like, they do their show, they make their money on their shows, but then they still give back to the community as doing the activism.
But I've never seen RuPaul do her own show. Like I personally have not gone to one of RuPaul's shows where it's not being controlled by the media of what they can and can't say on air. So I don't know, I can't speak to whether she actually in her act, if you will, takes a stance. Like I know you do, because, and a lot of folks do, I mean, oh God, what's her name? Black comedian. She's not
There's more than one.
No, I know.
Wanda Sykes? No.
Wanda Sykes.
Yes.
I mean, she's not doing, but she's very political in her, and she's a lesbian. So, and a person of color. So, different people have different ways of doing that, and some of them are not intended to be political activists. And she does, you're right, she has a big voice and a lot of money. So we don't know what she's doing maybe at the time afterwards. And she's passed, we'll learn like B. Arthur was a youth supporter of trans youth youth that were LGBT that were thrown out of their homes. So, I don't want to judge or prejudge her without her being able to defend herself.
I do have to say that like drag culture now, as you said, is definitely like very mainstream and is driven by like capitalist interests. So the reason why, for example, me as a drag king, it doesn't get popular is because, people don't sexualize me because I'm not a woman, right? And that's why like drag queens are usually at the forefront and not usually drag kings, because they're not, like femininity is like sexualized, like, and that's what sells, right? That's, the epitome of like capitalism for the male gaze. And so you have performers like me, you have performers like drag things that don't even like really fit. And sometimes I am a drag thing that don't fit the binary of like, drag queen or drag king, and they also get like the back burner of drag. So you can really see like in mainstream, and I'm not talking about underground drag because that's a little bit different, but mainstream drag, you can see those problems like very clearly, especially with RuPaul's Drag Race. And I haven't watched it a lot, I'm not gonna lie, maybe I should because I'm a drag artist, but the reason why is because like a lot of times I do see like some prejudice, like especially with like people of color, like trans folks, etc., because they perpetuate those stereotypes and those, harmful perceptions about us that sometimes make me feel like, dang, do I even belong in drag? But I do, because that's literally like where it originated from. It originated from people like me.
And it's got to be harder as a drag king, because the drag queen has the makeup behind it. Like you can cover up your whole face, you can wear a wig, you can present better than what do you do as a drag king, and better than me.
We can do a lot.
I'm about to say, the drag kings do really.
Yeah, this is just basic. This is just me like doing an anchor, like chilling, having a good time.
No, I know that, but you even mentioned like if you're in that earlier stages as a drag queen, you can cover it up a little bit better with makeup and stuff, regardless. As a drag king, you're going to present with less makeup traditionally. And so I can see how that is harder as a drag king as opposed to a drag queen, like presenting. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try watching Dragula, because when they have drag kings,
it's so
those
true.
guys go crazy.
And you're right.
Cool.
I mean, I have it.
There's actually going to be a new show. I really wanted to audition for it, but I just didn't have time. But maybe next year. It's called Kings of Drag. That's going to be specifically for drag kings. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's very cool.
Yeah. It's very, very cool, really. And now that's the big LGBTQ story for the day. There's no other platform like this in the entire world. Subscribe and share Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up gay culture. Gay Twitter explodes on why does gay culture embrace Speedo-clad muscle boy social media pictures? It's an unknown. A recent picture on Twitter, which one man calls X, has sparked a lively debate about gay culture, body standards, and unrealistic expectations of beauty. The photo shows 18 gay guys, all appearing white and all in Speedos with athletic bodies, and the caption stating, quote, "You walk into a party and see this WYD, or what you doing," end quote. Social media users had a lot to say, with health and science reporter Benjamin Ryan writing, quote, "This is what I loathe most about urban gay male culture. Men whose entire world revolves around taking steroids and consorting with men with identical bodies and then documenting it all on social media. It's petty, sad, vicocious, boring, and deeply unhealthy in myriad ways," end quote. User Ashmetic Kid wrote, "I know a lot of gays want to hate on this, but they're often the same gays who want to be part of this kind of crowd so bad," end quote. And my apologies for getting your username wrong. Others say they would, quote, "ask for a dose," end quote, or that they would do, quote, "their coke," end quote. User Live Laugh Lexapro seems to have summed it up the best with the tweet, quote, "The annual lack of diversity at the pool party photo getting dragged on here is the official start to gay summer. It's like our Groundhog Day," end quote. Well, I just want to start with, I am perplexed how pictures of attractive men, or in this case, allegedly attractive men, get so famous on Instagram of all places. Who knew? You know, I will say I am torn on one issue, because like I have seen a lot of photos that go around where it's like it's all white gays, and like I can only speak of my own experience. I'm like, I don't like, I tend to be in majority white gay groups, but not all white. But then I also say to myself, we also don't pose for pictures, photos like we're at like our family bar mitzvah. Or so maybe it's like an all white only gay thing.
Well, look, I mean, first of all, those people who complain about, you know, the vacuous lives they lead. I'm like, okay, you know, you're like trying to be mean girl about something. But and plus, I mean, we all live around here. Wilton Manor is one of the gayest places in the universe. And you know what? Yes, there are those cliques who have gym boys, but there are also bears, muscle bears, otters, puppies, you know, and people like kind of congregate based on their, well, you know, their lifestyle. I mean, for the lack of better word.
I just have to add, Benjamin Ryan, I believe was his name. That was some word salad and trying too much to score with like an AP score and an SAT test. I have no idea what.
Well, I'm sure if he is a he must be very intelligent to be that kind of writer. So.
Sure.
But he sounded angry.
Yeah, he sounded
jealous.
angry.
He sounded like he wanted a piece of the action and he wasn't getting it. There's a whole bunch of things you can say about like that narrow quote that was out there. You know, pretty people are pretty people, and they could have done the same thing with a group of bears. And it, you know, there's also handsome just because, you know, even if they're bigger and stuff like that, they're very good looking. Yeah. So we all know the Bears of South Florida has an like monthly pool party, and that's not a bad looking group. All that, you know,
no.
I mean, there are a bunch of very handsome men in there that just happen to be a little hairier. So I think it's a bad representation to say that represents the opening of summer for us, because that's what we all want to aspire to.
I mean, there are. I mean,
any of them out of bed, just
and I mean,
maybe
in some,
one or two.
In some aspects, that might be true in certain quarters. For example, Fire Island, which is extremely affluent and quite white, and you know you need to be extremely wealthy to get in, and of course they groom themselves up to the nines. Maybe that's true in Fire Island, but that doesn't apply to every other place. It doesn't apply to P-Town, Boston, Wilton.
P-Town's not exactly a working class place.
Yeah. P-Town's got a lot of money and less diversity.
I hate to be a little bit of a downer, but even though I agree that, you know, the men can be attractive to some and whatnot, like I think it definitely shows like a deeper conversation we're having about like what masculinity means to us and what is represented when we're talking about men. Because a lot of the times when, you know, I'm looking at like men's pages, I don't see people like me. Like I don't see people who are trans. I don't see people who are, you know, not like fit or buff. I don't see people of color. Like I sometimes, you know, feel excluded from the term man, even though I am a man, you know? So I kind of sometimes wish that, you know, the representation that we had of men was more broad and included more people. But of course, like you were saying, you know, sometimes people, and you were saying that people congregate based on like their certain identities and whatnot. So I understand. But man, like, I want to be included, you know?
No, it's just, like,
you should explore different things. I mean, there are different groups, subgenres, or as I call it, subgenres of gay men. And trust me, you will find one.
The best one is, I guess, twink, but I'm not fit enough for it.
the only positive I will say for sure on this, because, you know, earlier I was talking about Britney Spears 2007. The way body images were 20 years ago when I was like 20 versus now, sadly, this is progress compared to where we were 20 years ago. But there is one other aspect, like, because these were big muscle boys, we should talk about class on that. It's very hard to be poor and to afford the sort of life and protein and all the stuff to be looking like protein, some of those guys. Like the whole ripped look now, that's not a poor person's look at the end. That's not to be ignored.
I know, trust me, I would hate to eat like them. I mean, you eat is like broccoli and chicken. I'm like, good God, kill me.
And steroids.
Well, you don't eat steroids, but, you know, point taken.
I think what it does is it's more of a mental, like, won't say the F word, but it's more of a mental F to most people. Because you look at it, and we've been all trained to go, we should look like this, the whole body positive image or lack of it. And, you know, growing up, I remember getting depressed when I would look at something like that. It's going back to your point, is I didn't fit in. I didn't look like them. I was a skinny Jewish kid. I wasn't, you know, I'd never had a stick 8-pack. That would never be me. So, you know, you start to question, are you good enough? And so there is a negative part of this, is like, what does it do to you mentally when that's what you're using as representation? So, but I think, like, to Bobby's point and stuff, there is so much out there right now that wasn't 20 years ago, where we have the groups like the Bears, or we have the Otters, or we have whole different groups of people that are out there representing different parts of our culture. And TV's even gotten better. You know, they no longer show just the San Francisco Pride Festival where someone's wearing a tutu and a scoop neck tank top and pink feathers, you know, representing what we are, which we weren't. And that made it hard also growing up, because the only representation you had was that image, which wasn't who you are. Or, you know, 99% of us aren't that person on the float. So, you know, it goes all the way around. It's like, how do you fit in? And it's a bigger subject and a deeper conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, and that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Those are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. These anchors represent the best of our community.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Papi Huen, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Papi, Glen Weinzimer, and Alex Morash, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we hope you will join us by embracing love, generosity, bravery, be transformative, and queer. Good night.
Hi, everybody.